Ron Siegel Radio, your home and mortgage connection.
You're listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Show with local and national expert Ron Siegel. Now, here's Ron.
And hello again. Welcome to Ron Siegel Radio. This is the show with no real boundaries as we discuss current events, financial markets, politics, sports, even poking fun at the rest of the media. This is the show that connects the dots of confusion delivered by conflicting media reports. We connect the dots so you know the actions you can take out your family, your business, can benefit from current events. Most of all, thank you for joining me. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That is my message, and I will be delivering it every day. We have a very focused show. We only chat about items that affect the roof over your head, your bank account, and anything I feel would benefit you. And then remind you, if you ever have any home or finance-related questions, I am the consumer advocate looking out for you. And you can reach out to me directly, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or RonSiegelRadio.com. Just remember, that's the number you call anytime for assistance. When you call that number, it comes directly to me first. There are operators standing by.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Well, I do have a great team when it comes to developing a financing plan or plan to save you money. I personally work with you. Even if you don't have any needs today, save this number in your phone for future reference. 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. And yes, we are celebrating today. We celebrate every day on Ron Siegel Radio. It's National Junk Food Day. What is your favorite junk food? Now, okay, so we've only got an hour show. I can't go through all of my favorites. I mean, you think about it, French fries and donuts and candy, you know, a Snickers bar, M&Ms, Reese's, chips, salsa. Josh, we got to put that down there. What's a question of the day? What's your favorite junk food? And, you know, I'm just going to throw it out there. I like junk food. Don't eat nearly as much of it as I once did, but junk food, how can you go wrong with junk food? I guess not if you want to be healthy. Okay. Let's move right along. Let's see what the markets are doing today. Odd day in the markets. Very, very odd day. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up 415 points. The NASDAQ is up 345. The S&P 500 is up 65. Then we look at oil up $1.73 a barrel. Ow! Yeah, that doesn't look exciting. Gas prices, well, we've got a national average of $4.02 a gallon. California, $5.52 a gallon. $1.50 more than the national average. Thank you, Gavin. We appreciate that. I know we appreciate it because otherwise we wouldn't have keep voting for him. We look at but we keep on watching the numbers. Gold is up $69 an ounce. 10-year Treasury up 3 basis points. 462. Mortgage bonds down 12. You know, so it's just a mixed bag all over the markets. Watching what's going on right here. So it's all going to be about watching what's important to you. And I was chatting with a friend earlier this morning. Yes, I know it's only 9 o'clock here on the West Coast, but I have no life. I get started right around 4:30 each day. So my friends on the East Coast, they're up and at 'em. But you look at it and you still say all these rate issues that are going on. And we look at the 30-year fixed rate, according to Mortgage News Daily, 6.63. We've expanded again a little bit that spread between the 10-year Treasury and the mortgage, the 30-year fixed rate at 6.63 versus 6.62. That's 2.01 is the spread. 179 is normal. So we look at these numbers and we say, does it matter? And I get so many people that say that's all they care about. What's the rate?
You know better than that.
Okay, so why aren't you looking at your total debts? Why aren't you looking at your blended household interest rate? Now, we've rolled out a new program at Ron Siegel Radio, and right now we've got a few options that are free. rsrlinks.com/DDD. rsrlinks.com It's a debt done date analyzer. What do I mean by a debt done date analyzer? Well, if you've watched and listened to some famous radio personalities, you'll hear about the debt snowball and the debt avalanche. And there's about 80 different debt solutions or strategies of getting out of debt. Well, when you look at the debt done date analyzer, we take your specific situation and put it in there. rsrlinks.com/DDD. You put your situation in there. You put your mortgage in there. You put your HELOC in there. You put in there all of your different credit cards. We know they average 22.8%. You put in your student loans. You put in your auto loans. And there's analysis in there as to what you can do to get out of debt quickest. Now, it may say that, you look at it and say, oh, Ron, I've got a 3.5 mortgage rate, 3.5% mortgage rate. And I'm going to tell you, who cares? Because if you've got a bunch of credit card debt at 22.8% on average, you've got student loan debt at 7, 8, 9% on average, you've got auto loans in there, who cares what one debt is when you look at a household blended interest rate? And yes, it will show you your blended rate on the debt done date calculator. And then it gives you these strategies. Now, if you want coaching on how to get all of this accomplished, coaching costs a little bit of money, not a lot, but you can get the strategies for free. All you need to do is go right there to the debt done date tool, and it'll show it to you. So what are you waiting for? Oh, yeah, because I've got a 3% interest rate, and I'm excited about that while I stay in debt. Does that make any sense? I mean, who cares whether it comes out of your right pocket, your left pocket, your savings account, or you're buried in debt? It doesn't matter. That's why you have to look at some of these things and start saying, what's my strategy to get out of debt? What's my strategy to achieve my goals? It's all about strategy. Strategy beats rate always. I say it on every broadcast, and I get these people that get tired of hearing it, but then they call and say, what's the rate? And I say, what's the goal? Are you looking to get out of debt? Well, maybe you get a 7% interest rate. Maybe it's even 7.25%. But you save $1,300 in your cash flow and start applying that strategically. And now your effective interest rate is way below 6, 5, 4. It depends on what's going on there. You have to understand these things, and most people don't, because all they've ever heard in their whole life, all they've ever been taught, schools don't teach us anymore, but all they've ever been taught is, what's the rate? Well, what's the goal? You are listening to Ron Siegel Radio, discussing your real estate, current events, and the financial markets. 5 years running, why real estate still is America's favorite investment. Your car payment could be costing you a house. We'll show you the math. The loan that never asks your tax returns, here's the math that gets investors approved. And 73% plan to work in retirement, only 25% actually do. Who's planning for the gap? All that and more. Reach me anytime. Off-air number 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or RonSiegelRadio.com, Facebook.com/Ron Siegel Radio. And if you miss any part of our broadcast, Ron Siegel 1 on YouTube, Ron Siegel, the numeral 1 on YouTube. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few.
Ron Siegel Radio. Your home and mortgage connection.
Are you a veteran, own a home, and need money? The Siegel Lending Team is here to help veterans refinance and get the money they need. The VA 100 lets you borrow up to 100% of your home's value, refinance your mortgages, consolidate credit cards, and lower your payments by an average of $700 a month. And the Siegel Lending Team knows that character means more than a credit score. Call 800-306-1990. That's 800-306-1990. Rate subject to change without notice. Licensed by the California Department of Corporations, NMLS 21037, and DRE number 01869452. You're listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Show with local and national expert Ron Siegel. Now, here's
Welcome back to Ron Siegel Radio. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That is my message, and I will be delivering it every day on Ron Siegel Radio or anytime at 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. Mortgage Minute today being brought to you by rsrloans.com, rsrloans.com. Tried to throw Josh a little curveball right there. Mortgage Minute brought to you by rsrloans.com. Every day at this time, OBMMI, they provide the most comprehensive, accurate, timely, and interactive analysis of pricing ever conducted in the mortgage industry, calculated from actual locked rates with consumers across 35% of all mortgage transactions nationwide. They don't tell us points paid, points received, or the APR. They only tell us the number you put in your mortgage calculator to determine your principal and interest payments. If you don't have a mortgage calculator, get it. rsrlinks.com/calculators, rsrlinks.com/calculators. What did rates do yesterday? Most of them were up. We've got the 30-year fixed, 6.564. That was up. Jumbo 30-year fixed, 6.544. That was down. FHA 30-year fixed, 6.357. That was up. VA 30-year fixed, 6.227. That was up. USDA 30-year fixed, 6.412. That was up. If you want our thoughts about the market, each week we put out a report. It's every Friday. rsrlinks.com/WUC. It's the weekend update, the consumer edition, because we do put one out for financial advisors, real estate agents, CPAs, insurance agents. They all get one as well. What's happening in the markets right now? Well, I am going to tell you that. The S&P 500 is now up 67. 10-year Treasury is up 3 at 4.63. And we've got the mortgage bond down 12 basis points. It is, remember, bonds down, rates up. That's mathematics. That's the way it goes. So why is it happening? It's an interesting story on CNBC. Breakdown how many consumers are living paycheck to paycheck. The survey showed 64% of those earning between $50,000 and $100,000, and 41% of those earning between $100,000 and $250,000 are living paycheck to paycheck. They define it as having less than $500 left over after expenses each month. This means that there is very little cushion for most consumers if there are any shocks. It also shows the bifurcated economy. The top 10% is clearly driving most of the spending. Higher oil prices are clearly having the impact on consumers, which is causing overall inflation to be higher. As a result, many Fed members are pushing for a rate hike, but hiking rates will not cause oil or food prices to come down. What it will do is hurt consumers. If the Feds were to hike, consumers with HELOCs, credit card debt, car loans, etc., will pay more and feel the pinch even more. There's also the potential for the Fed to push the economy into a recession if they were to hike. We hope the Fed walks the line carefully. There is an opportunity, however. Almost 80% of consumers surveyed have debt, with 25% or more of their income used for debt payments. There may be an opportunity for cash out refinances to clean up some of that debt. That's why I was talking in the A block about the debt done date simulator that we have. rsrlinks.com/DDD, rsrlinks.com/DDD. ICE reported their home price index for July, showing that home values nationwide rose by 0.26%. Since the beginning of the year, they are running at a 3% annualized rate, which is pretty strong and meaningful for wealth creation. Year over year, looking backwards, home values are up 1.7%, which is an increase from 1.3%. That's a national number. Remember, here in California, we can generally double those numbers. So, and if you're putting 10% down, think about what that cash on cash does for you. That's the Mortgage Minute, brought to you by rsrloans.com, rsrloans.com. Mortgage 101 today. Mortgage 101 brought to you by rsrloans.com. Most real estate investors believe every loan starts the same way. Hand over your tax returns, your W-2s, 2 years of your life on paper. What if I told you there's a loan where the lender never asks for any of that? I am Ron Siegel, Certified Liability Advisor, helping families build wealth through strategic debt management. Today, I want to talk about a loan that most investors have never heard of. And the ones who have heard of it usually have it half wrong. It's called a DSCR loan. That stands for Debt Service Coverage Ratio. I know it sounds like something a CPA mumbles in their sleep. Stay with me, because this one matters. Here's the big picture. On a normal mortgage, the lender is qualifying you, your income, your tax returns, your pay stubs. On a DSCR loan, the lender is qualifying the property. They don't ask what you earn. They ask what the property earns. So how does that work? The lender takes the expected monthly rent on the property, divides it by the new monthly payment, principal, interest, taxes, insurance, HOA. That's the whole formula. Rent divided by payment. If the rent is at least as much as the payment, and ideally about 1.25 times the payment, the deal works. The property covers its own debt with room to spare. That's the coverage in debt service coverage ratio. Now, why would anyone need this? Picture a business owner. He runs a landscaping company here in Southern California. Good business. Trucks, crews, steady contracts. And like every smart business owner, his CPA works hard every year to keep his taxable income as low as legally possible. Great for April 15th. Terrible for a loan application. He wants to buy a rental property. On paper, his tax returns say he can barely afford lunch. The bank looks at his file and says no. Not because he can't afford it, because his paperwork doesn't fit their box. Sound familiar? This is the difference between eligibility and suitability, and it's the heart of what a certified liability advisor does. The bank asks, does this man or woman fit our rules? The better question is, does this deal make sense for this person? The rental he wants would bring in more rent each month than the payment costs. The property pays for itself. The deal is suitable. His tax returns just can't say so. So he does a DSCR loan, no tax returns, no W-2s, no explaining why his business writes off the trucks. The lender looks at the rent, looks at the payment, sees the numbers work, and the deal closes. He collects rent on that property every month from then on. So what does this mean for you? If you're self-employed, if you own a business, if you already have a few rentals, and your tax returns look like a novel nobody wants to read, this loan exists for you. Investors use these every single month for exactly this reason. Their real financial life and their paperwork don't match, and that's not a character flaw. That's just how tax planning works. Now, let me be very clear about a few things, because I promised you the full picture, not a commercial. First, these are for rental properties, rentals, not the home you live in. Second, expect to bring a real down payment. The lender is leaning on the property, so they want you to have skin in the game. Third, the rate on the DSCR loan is usually a little higher than a standard mortgage. And here's where I'll say the thing I always say: strategy beats rate always. A slightly higher rate on a property that pays for itself and builds your net worth beats a lower rate on a loan you can't get. The rate you're not approved for doesn't help you buy anything. And fourth, the numbers have to actually work. If the rent doesn't cover the payment, this isn't a magic wand. It's a tool. The right tool for the right deal, the right in the right hands. Think of it like this. A regular mortgage judges your past. A DSCR loan judges the property's future. For an investor, that's often the fairer test. If you've been told no because of your tax returns, or you've been putting off that rental purchase because you dread the paperwork, go to rsrlinks.com/DSCR. That's rsrlinks.com/DSCR. You'll see how these loans work, what the numbers need to look like, and how to find out if your next property can qualify on its own. The property does the talking, you just collect the rent. I am Ron Siegel, your certified liability advisor, helping families build wealth through strategic debt management. That is Mortgage 101, brought to you by rsrlinks.com. I'm sorry, rsrloans.com. rsrloans.com. You are listening to Ron Siegel Radio, discussing your real estate, current events, and the financial markets. When we come back, 14 years. Why real estate is still America's favorite. And 73% plan to work in retirement. Only 25% actually do. Plan for the gap and more. Reach me anytime. Off-air number 800-306-1990. 800-306-1990 or RonSiegelRadio.com. Facebook.com/Ron Siegel Radio. And if you missed any part of our broadcast, Ron Siegel 1 on YouTube. Ron Siegel, the numeral 1 on YouTube. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few.
Ron Siegel Radio. Your home and mortgage connection.
Confused about the home buying process? Or curious how much you really know about buying a home? Take the First Home IQ quiz to test your understanding of buying a home. Created by the nonprofit First Home IQ, this 5-minute quiz will give you a score, what you missed, and why. Take the quiz in 5 minutes at rsrlinks.com/FHIQ and find out what you need to know about buying your first home. That's rsrlinks.com/FHIQ.
You're listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Show with local and national expert Ron Siegel. Now, here's
Welcome back to Ron Siegel Radio. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That is my message, and I will be delivering it every day on Ron Siegel Radio or anytime at 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. Real-time real estate segment today being brought to you by rsrmoney.com, rsrmoney.com. 14 years running. Why real estate is still America's favorite investment. Quick gut reaction. Which investment do Americans trust more than stocks, gold, savings accounts, and bonds? The answer hasn't changed in 14 years. It's real estate. And this year, that answer comes with even more conviction behind it. New data shows people aren't just saying home ownership is a smart move. They're feeling better about it than they have in years. Let's dig into why. Every year, Gallup asks Americans to name the best long-term investment. For the 14th year in a row, real estate came out on top. If you're watching us on RonSiegelRadio.tv, any of our socials at ABC, News and Talk, AM 1490, FM 98.1 video feed, you are seeing a chart. Real estate remains the best investment for the 14th year. That's not a fluke or a hot streak. That's 14 straight years of beating out stocks, gold, and everything else. Think about everything that's happened in that stretch. Rising rates, market swings, election years, you name it. Through all of it, Americans kept picking up real estate. That kind of staying power says something about how people view home ownership, and it makes sense. Historically, it's one of the best ways to build wealth in this country. As Michelle Egan, head of Credit Solutions, Impact Finance at JP Morgan Chase explains, quote, owning a home has long been considered one of the most reliable ways to build wealth. Beyond providing shelter, a home is a valuable asset that can appreciate over time, build equity, and serve as a financial resource for generations, unquote. Now, you may have seen chatter online saying home prices are falling and wondered if that changes the math. It really shouldn't. Nationally, home prices are still rising, just at a slower pace than a few years ago. Yes, some local markets are seeing slight dips, but those dips are small compared to how much home values have grown over the past 5 years. Generally speaking, home prices almost always rise. As long as you plan to live there for a good length of time, you should still have the chance to build equity. And while it's true, homeownership has been seen as a worthwhile pursuit for years now, something interesting is happening. It may actually be gaining a bit more popularity again. According to Bank of America's latest Home Buyer Insights report, 53% of people now say it's better to buy a home than to rent or move in with family. That's the first time buying has taken the lead since 2023. And yes, of course, we have a graph to show it. In that same report, there are a few other signals that confidence in home ownership is on the rise. 90% of people say a home is a valuable investment, up from 79% just last year. And 94% say owning a home provides stability, up from 83% the year prior. Those are relatively big jumps in a short amount of time, and here's what may be driving it. Sure, affordability is still tight and some markets are still hard to break into, but that hasn't changed what people feel about home ownership as a goal, and the reason why is simple. It's not just a financial decision, it's a lifestyle choice. A home pays you back in ways stocks never could. And Shahayarar Bokhari, I'm sure I'm jumbled that name, principal economist at Redfin, says, quote, "For many homeowners, a home is more than a place to sleep and store belongings. It's a reflection on who they are. Home ownership can help people put down roots, build relationships, and create a space that feels uniquely their own," unquote. You can't get that from a brokerage account. A home is the one investment that grows your wealth and gives you a place to build your life, and that means something. Bottom line, for 14 straight years, Americans have called real estate the best long-term investment, and confidence in owning a home is on the rise. If you've been weighing whether to buying is worth it, let's connect and talk through what the first step could look like for you. That is the Real-Time Real Estate segment, brought to you by rsrmoney.com, rsrmoney.com. Borrow Smart segment today being brought to you by rsrwealthbuilder.com, rsrwealthbuilder.com. Ask someone about their retirement plan and they'll quote you a number. Ask them what an ordinary Tuesday looks like when they're 72 and you get silence. They were talking about the retirement question that have nothing to do with money and why they might matter more than the number. I am Ron Siegel, Certified Liability Advisor, helping families build wealth through strategic debt management. There are 4 questions here, and none of them show up on a bank statement. Question 1, what will you do with your time? Too many people retire from something without retiring to something. They leave work, and 3 weeks later, they're restless. Here's a stat worth sitting with from a recent Employee Benefit Research Institute survey. 73% of workers expect to work for pay in retirement. Only 25% of retirees actually do. That is a huge gap between the plan and the reality. 73% expect to work. Only 25% actually do. Maybe health changes. Maybe the job market changes. Maybe you change. If your retirement plan depends on a paycheck that may never come, that is not a plan, that is hope. Question 2, where will you live? Happiness in retirement has a zip code. Being near family and friends, keeping old friendships, meeting new people with similar interests, that is worth more than most upgrades. A walkable community with good transit and senior services. Even better. Your house is not just an asset, it is the stage your whole second act happens on. Question 3, how will you get around in your 80s and 90s? The actuaries at Social Security project that a man turning 67 today lives to about 84.8 on average, and women to about 87.2. Many will go well past that. So play it forward. What car do you want to be driving at 85? What age do you stop driving? And when do you stop? Who takes you where you want to go? Nobody loves this question. Everybody needs it. Question 4, how will you keep up your home? At 45, you knock out the bathroom remodel yourself. Not me. At 75, you're hiring it out. Whether you stay in the house or not, maybe the single family home becomes a townhome or a condo. Either way, repairs, gardening, and upkeep become line items you should expect and plan to fund. So what does this mean for you? Notice something? 3 of these 4 questions run straight through your housing. Where you live, how you maintain it, how you pay for it. This is where I remind you that the goal in retirement is not just a paid-off address, it is options. I never recommend racing to pay off a mortgage at the expense of your liquidity, because an 80-year-old with equity but no cash has a very hard problem. Strategy beats rate always. Your housing decisions, your retirement picture need to be planned together. Here's your homework. Sit down with your spouse or someone you trust and actually answer these 4 questions out loud. Then look at whether your money lines up with your answers. I offer a tool that makes that second part easier. It's called Key Steps, and it puts your budget, your asset tracking, and your credit monitoring in one place so you can see your whole picture. Go to rsrlinks.com/keysteps. That's rsrlinks.com/keysteps. I am Ron Siegel, your Certified Liability Advisor, helping families build wealth through strategic debt management. Thanks for listening to the Borrow Smart segment, brought to you by rsrwealthbuilder.com, rsrwealthbuilder.com. You are listening to Ron Siegel Radio, discussing your real estate, current events, and the financial markets. When we come back, your car payment could be costing you a house. We'll show you why. All that and more. Reach me anytime. Off-air number 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or ronsiegelradio.com, facebook.com/Ron Siegel Radio. And if you missed any part of our broadcast, Ron Siegel 1 on YouTube, Ron Siegel, the numeral 1 on YouTube. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few.
Ron Siegel Radio. Your home and mortgage connection.
Are you a veteran, own a home, and need money? The Siegel Lending Team is here to help veterans refinance and get the money they need. The VA 100 lets you borrow up to 100% of your home's value, refinance your mortgages, consolidate credit cards, and lower your payments by an average of $700 a month. And the Siegel Lending Team knows that character means more than a credit score. Call 800-306-1990. That's 800-306-1990. Rate subject to change without notice. Licensed by the California Department of Corporations, NMLS 21037, and DRE number 018694452.
You're listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Show with local and national expert Ron Siegel. Now, here's...
Welcome back to Ron Siegel Radio. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That is my message, and I will be delivering I will be delivering it every day on Ron Siegel Radio anytime at 800-306-1990. 800-306-1990. The Your Credit Matters segment today being brought to you by rsrlinks.com/debt-free, rsrlinks.com/debt-free. Here's a question most people answer in a single weekend. Should I buy or lease my next car? And here's the part nobody mentions at the dealership. That decision can follow you into every mortgage application you fill out for the next 6 years. I am Ron Siegel, Certified Liability Advisor, helping families build wealth through strategic debt management. Let's run a real side-by-side. Picture this. You're looking at a car and you have 2 options. Option 1, you buy it. $3,000 down, a 5-year loan, payments that add up to about $35,609 for a total cost about $38,609. Option 2, you lease the same car, $2,000 down, $400 a month, total cost $26,000 over the term. On paper, leasing wins by $12,609. That is real money. But hold on. At the end of the lease, you hand back the keys and own nothing. The buyer still owns a car, and that car still has value. So the gap is smaller than it looks. And you do not have to run this math on a napkin. Among the illustrators I offer is a lease versus buy illustrator that runs this exact comparison with your numbers. You can get it at rsrlinks.com/calculators, rsrlinks.com/calculators. So what does this mean for you? It means buy versus lease is not a math problem with one answer. It is a strategy question. How many miles do you drive? How long do you keep your cars? If you keep a car 8 to 10 years, buying usually wins. If you trade in every 3 years anyway, you're already leasing. You're just doing it with extra steps. And here's the option almost nobody takes. Buy a year-old, low-mileage car. Someone else already paid the steepest part of the depreciation. That is often the cheapest path of all. Now let me put on my Certified Liability Advisor hat, because this is the part that matters most. Lenders qualify you for a mortgage based on your debt to income ratio. Every monthly payment you carry counts against you. As a rough rule, every $100 a monthly car payment reduces what you can borrow on a home by about $15,000. Think about that. A $600 car payment can shrink your mortgage approval by roughly $90,000. And that is not a rounding error. That is the difference between the neighborhood you want and the one you settle for. A $600 car payment can shrink your mortgage approval by roughly $90,000. Strategy beats rate always. The finance manager wants to talk about the interest rate on the car loan. The real question is what the payment does to your household cash flow and your bigger plan. If there is any chance you'll buy a home or restructure your mortgage in the next 12 months, talk to a professional before you sign anything at a dealership. The order you make these moves in matters. So where do you start? You start with a budget that tells you the truth. I offer a tool called Key Steps. It puts your budget, credit monitoring, and your asset tracking in one place so you can see exactly what a car payment does to your bigger picture before you commit. Go to rsrlinks.com/keysteps. That's rsrlinks.com/keysteps. I am Ron Siegel, your certified liability advisor, helping families build wealth through strategic debt management. Thanks for listening to the Your Credit Matters segment brought to you by rsrlinks.com/debt-free, rsrlinks.com/debt-free. And as always, I ask that first radio preset button to come back and join Ron Siegel Radio, where we only speak about items affecting your house and your bank account. Thanks to all of our sponsors. Big thanks to Josh and Sean who are engineering us today. And of course, a special thanks to you for spending a little bit of your day with us. That's all for Ron Siegel Radio. Again, if you have any questions or to meet any of our guests, call me anytime, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or ronsiegelradio.com. And remember, make a lot of money so you can help a lot of people and have a lot of fun. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next time on Ron Siegel Radio.